Imagine someone broke into your home, stole your family's most precious treasures, objects that had been passed down for generations, and then opened a museum and charged people money to look at them. That is the accusation millions of people around the world make against one of the most visited museums on Earth. The British Museum holds over 8 million objects. It is one of the largest collections of human history ever assembled in one place. But here is the question nobody at the museum wants to answer. How did they get all of it? I am Divine. This is Divine Tells Dark History, and this is the dark truth behind the world's most famous museum. Let's start with Nigeria, because this one is personal. In 1897, British soldiers invaded the Kingdom of Benin in what is now southwestern Nigeria. They burned the royal palace of the Oba, and they took everything they could carry. 4,000 sculptures, brass plaques, ivory carvings, coral regalia, objects that had been created over centuries by master craftsmen of one of Africa's greatest kingdoms. They were loaded onto ships and taken to Britain. Many ended up in the British Museum. Others were sold across Europe and America. Today, the British Museum holds one of the largest collections of Benin bronzes in the world. Nigeria, the country they were stolen from, has been asking for them back for decades. The British Museum's response: they cited a law that prevents them from giving anything away permanently, a law, critics note, that Britain made for itself. Even the British Museum acknowledges the bronzes were looted during what it described as widespread destruction and pillage. They know they were stolen, they just won't give them back.
Nigeria is not alone. The Rosetta Stone, one of the most important objects in human history, sits in the British Museum. It has been there since 1802. The Rosetta Stone was discovered in 1799 during Napoleon Bonaparte's military invasion of Egypt. When the British defeated the French in Egypt, they took it. It was never Egypt's choice to give it away. Egypt has been asking for the Rosetta Stone back for years. The British Museum says no. The stone that unlocked the secret of ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics written by Egyptians about Egypt for Egyptians sits in London, while Egypt, where it was made, cannot have it back.
And then there is Greece. In the early 1800s, a Scottish nobleman named Lord Elgin removed large sections of sculptural decoration from the Parthenon, one of the most sacred buildings in the ancient world, in Athens, Greece. He shipped them to Britain. They ended up in the British Museum. They have been there for over 200 years. Greece built a brand new state-of-the-art museum specifically to receive them back in 2009. It has been waiting ever since. The British Museum still says no. Greece, Nigeria, Egypt. 3 different continents, 3 different cultures, 3 different histories, all asking for the same thing and getting the same answer. But here is where the story gets even darker. In 2023, the British Museum made an announcement that shocked the world. Around 2,000 objects from its own collection had gone missing over the past decade. Some had been sold on eBay for a fraction of their true value. Evidence pointed to an inside job. A curator of Greek antiquities was fired. The museum's director resigned, admitting he had been too slow to act on evidence he received 2 years earlier. Think about what that means. The British Museum, which has spent decades arguing it is the safest place in the world to keep other countries' treasures, could not protect its own collection from its own staff. 2,000 objects gone, some sold online for almost nothing. The museum that told Nigeria it couldn't have its bronzes back because London was safer than Lagos was selling artifacts on eBay. To be fair, and on this channel we always present both sides, the British Museum does make arguments in its defense. It argues that keeping objects together in one place allows people to understand human history as a whole, that it displays only 1% of its 8 million objects, that many artifacts are better preserved in London than they might be elsewhere. Some historians agree. Some argue that the question of where an object belongs is not always straightforward, especially when national borders and cultures have changed over centuries. But here is what is difficult to argue with. The Benin Bronzes were taken by force. The British Museum admits that. A soldier with a gun is not a legitimate collector. And when the very institution claiming to be the safest keeper of these objects loses 2,000 of them to an inside job, that argument becomes very hard to make with a straight face. 8 million objects, most of them from countries other than Britain. A significant portion acquired through what China's state media described as dirty and sinful means. Countries from every continent asking for their history back and being told no. Here is what I want you to think about. A museum is supposed to preserve history, to protect it, to share it with the world. But whose world, and at what cost? When a Benin child visits London and sees their great-grandmother's sacred objects behind glass in a foreign country, is that preservation, or is that something else entirely? The British Museum is not going away. These objects may never be returned. That debate will outlast all of us. But now you know the story, the full story, not the version on the museum's website. And knowing is the first step. This has been Div Tells Dark History. I am Divine, and we are just getting started.